Hi, mystery writers. Welcome to Write a Killer Mystery. I'm Zara Altair, and this is where we learn to make a good mystery great. And today I want to talk about how to choose your story's point of view. First, I want to thank my supporters on Patreon for their ongoing support. It helps bring these videos to you every week and also supports my writing. So thank you. Okay, so how to choose your story's point of view. First, just so we're clear, let's talk about what is narrative point of view. When you choose the point of view for your mystery novel, you create the perspective of how the story is told. And point of view determines the narrator's relationship to the story, and it also determines the reader's relationship to the story, how much they know and what they learn by reading and listening to that point of view. The way the narrator tells the story drives the reader's connection to your novel. And to make a decision on point of view, you need to understand the choices because each point of view method has limitations and also positive storytelling approaches. So let's kind of go through them. The first one is first person point of view. And in first person point of view, it's told from the perspective of I. So you use pronouns like I, me, my, and a single character describes his or her experiences. Because one individual is telling the story, the reader knows only the information shared by that narrator. You'll find first-person point of view common in noir and psychological crime because the reader discovery of the mystery puzzle is based on the narrator's experience. So in that case, the narrator, usually your sleuth protagonist, is definitely the reader's guide through this story. The next point of view is second person point of view, and this is a tough one for experienced writers as well as beginning writers. So this is where the reader becomes the protagonist. So the pronouns that you use are you and your and yours, and the reader, because the reader becomes the protagonist, they're drawn way into the story. However, when you're writing, this point of view is very difficult to sustain, and most writers pretty much steer clear of second person point of view. If you want to see how it's done and how it is sustained through an entire story, Bright Lights, Big City by Jay McInerney is a brilliant example. It is a brilliant example. But boy, you've got to get your craft boots on to tackle second person point of view. Okay, another point of view that's used very frequently in novels is the third person limited. And this point of view uses pronouns like she, he, her, his, because the narrator is outside of the story relating a character's experiences to the reader. This viewpoint is popular in mysteries because the limited point of view conveniently hides important clues. So you really control what your reader knows and experiences. There's also third person omniscient, and that point of view is told with the same pronouns he, she, as limited, but the narrator relates thoughts and experiences of all the characters, and the narrator has this big kind of God's eye overview of the whole story, everything in the story. And in some novels, the narrator overtly addresses the reader. For example, "Dear reader, little did Lord Mont Blanc know," blah, blah, blah. So that's why they use the word omniscient. The narrator knows everything. The narrator knows what happened before, what's happening now, and what is going to happen in the future. This is a challenging point of view for mystery writers because the reader knows what is in the head of all the characters. So it's really, really hard to hide clues, to hide perspective about the suspects. So let's talk a little bit about why narrative point of view is important. We've gone through your choices, and then let's talk about why it's important, because the importance is going to influence how you choose your point of view for your story. A point of view directly affects how readers respond to your story, and a big part of what makes a successful story is the way you tell the story to the reader, and the way you tell the story is the narrative point of view. So point of view determines how you bring the reader in. You decide, as the writer, you decide what distance you create between the reader and the characters. You decide what is acceptable, so the reader develops a level of trust in the narrator and becomes involved in the story. A character is doing the talking in the story, except for second person point of view. So you choose the right character and the narrative distance you want to achieve with your reader. So let's talk about some ways to determine how you choose the point of view for your story. Sometimes it's just one of those things. You know exactly who will tell the story and how much distance you want to create. But other times you need to sort through the criteria to decide what point of view you want to choose. I know I had a story a while back where I vacillated between first person and third person. So you have three main considerations to consider when you're making your choice. One is establishing distance. If you want to create a sense of intimacy with your character without pulling the reader into the story, you might choose the first person. And if you want to set the narrator apart from the reader while giving them a wide view, you might choose the third person. So it's about how much distance you're going to create between the reader and what they know about the story, and also how the story is told. For instance, the first person point of view, there's a bigger sense of intimacy between the narrator and the reader. The next choice, and this is especially important for mystery writers, is information distribution. First person point of view allows you to limit the information the reader knows, because they're only getting the information that first person character is telling them. They know nothing other than what that character sees, hears, and experiences. So the reader makes the same discoveries as the narrator. On the other hand, limited third person point of view focuses on your protagonist, but it also allows you to control how much information the reader receives. So with limited third person, you get to add a little more information than you would with first person narrative, but it is about distributing information. And of course, when we're creating mysteries, we're creating puzzles, and how much information we give the reader helps determine how much they are puzzled by the mystery. Okay, and the third important choice factor is narrator trust. Characters, like people, have biases, and you need to decide how trustworthy you want your narrator to be. First person point of view sacrifices objectivity with the narrator. Just all you get is the subjective point of view of the narrator, while third person limited allows you to develop a trust in your protagonist while still holding back. Telling the story in the third person limited but using deep point of view allows the reader to know and empathize with your protagonist's emotions. So if you are a beginning mystery writer, choosing first person or third person limited point of view helps you control the information while developing a connection with your protagonist sleuth. And I think if you're just starting out, and especially if you're just starting out with novel writing, you want to choose one of those two points of view, either first person or third person limited. It's going to make your storytelling smoother and easier the first time. I do want to mention also that you can write your novel with multiple points of views, and you can also alternate between first person and third person, for example. So some mysteries use multiple points of views. For example, they may have the villain's voice in the first person, almost like sometimes it is a diary and the villain is saying what they're thinking and what they're feeling and what they want to do and what their plans are. But we don't know who that villain is. We only know what they're thinking, and that comes in the first person. And at the same time as the mystery story evolves, it may be told in the third person, as far as following the sleuth and the sleuth's attempts to discover who that villain is. And then there's a whole set of mysteries with multiple points of view. Thinking of like P.D. James or Anne Cleves, who tell the stories from many points of view of all the different suspects. So there's a lot of information control involved, but there are multiple points of view in the story. So this technique allows the reader to get to know each suspect and raises the tension of who is actually the culprit. So really, choosing comes down to deciding which type of point of view you want, how much distance you want to have between the reader and the narrator, how much information that reader is going to get, and how much they're going to trust your narrator. So it's all up to you. Your point of view decision comes early in the novel writing process, because once you decide, you need to maintain that choice for the rest of the novel. Switching the narrator's voice, for example, from first person to third person, will upset your reader. So you need to make that decision early. How you're going to present your story, how you're going to introduce your protagonist, how you're going to introduce your suspects, how much information you're going to give your reader, and when you control that through your point of view choice. So weigh the factors that are important to you on how you want to tell your story, and then make a choice. Okay, I hope that helps. It is a big decision, and it's an early decision, so give it a lot of thought. I think if you're vacillating, one thing that you can do is try writing a scene each way. Say, try writing a scene in the first person and see what happens, and try writing the same scene in the third person, and you'll get a sense of how those two different points of view feel to you as you're writing, and what your comfort level is with one point of view over another. So that's a good exercise to do if you're having trouble deciding. Also, I wanted to invite you to the Mystery Writer Studio, which is a private Facebook group for mystery writers, to talk about mystery writing, and the link is in the description below, so I'd love to have you join us. We have seasoned writers, we have beginning writers, we have writers who've written one book and are doing some more, writers who've written other types of novels and are just starting with their first mystery novel. So there's a wide variety of people inside, and I'd love for you to come in and join this discussion. Okay, that's it for Write a Killer Mystery today, and keep writing.